Hello, welcome to the Wool Wider podcast. My name is Frances, and this is my place where I like to share with you all about my knitting, a little bit about Hugo, and some other things in my life that make me smile. I've got a finished project today, I've got some works in progress, but today I'm also going to pull out some of last summer's unfinished knits. I wasn't podcasting last summer, so there aren't things that you will have seen before, and I want to look at getting some of those finished. I haven't told you actually that Hugo is wearing a suit today. He was neutered last week, and you have a choice of wearing the cone of shame or of wearing one of these suits, and that's basically it's to stop them trying to lick their stitches, which can bring in infections and that kind of thing. So you've got to wear it for 10 days, haven't you, mate? And you're not overly impressed, to be honest. But anyway, he's a lot happier than he would be if he was wearing the cones. So that's why he's got this strange little suit on, and it makes him, because it's quite tight fitting, it makes him look very small and skinny. So let's start with what I'm wearing. This is my rainbow sea glass sweater. You okay, Hugo? Would you like to go down? Would you? Or are you going to stay here? What are you going to do? This is made using a colour pack from Border Mill and Rowan Valley Tweed, following the sea glass pattern by Wool and Pine, which is a top down in the round pattern. But I changed the neck, so I've made the necks from Fern and Feather. Right, you do want to go down, don't you? Okay. Hope you won't now start chewing something down there, which is what he tends to do, to try and get some attention. So I did the neck from the Fern and Feather, which meant just casting on in stocking stitch instead of doing a rib. And because you've only done stocking stitch, that creates the curling neckline. And I like that kind of looser, more open neck on a lighter sweater like this. And then there are short rows on the back, which obviously makes a big difference in the fit. My gauge was tighter on this pattern, so what I did was I did some calculations and therefore chose to knit the size 6 instead of the size 4 for the yoke, and then the size 8 for the body instead of the size 6. If you haven't tried knitting a pattern with a different gauge, like I've done on this one, there are details about information about how you can do that. A couple of resources that I thought were useful. Knitting Pearlie's Switcheroo worksheet, you could look for that, or Tash from Mostly Knitting podcast also talks about it on one of her podcasts. So both of those are quite a good place to look, either to get started or just to reassure you as to what you're doing. So to get the fade between the colours, I chose a slightly different stitch pattern, stitch alteration, if you like, to the one that's in the sea glass pattern. So what I did was I was alternating colours 1 and 2. Then on the next round, I was doing 2 only. Then the next round, I was alternating 2 and 3. And then on the next round, only 3, and so forth. And so that's given that nice fade with the rainbow. And I'm really delighted with the jumper. So given that I've played around with the sizing, the gauge and the sizing, as I mentioned, the fit is perfect. It's spot on. So I'm really pleased with that. It's nice and snug on my shoulders, which are quite small, which is why I always do a couple of sizes lower. Hugo's starting to pull blankets out and things from his crate. Oh, and now he's looking at his reflection in the mirror. Sorry. Back to the podcast. So as I was saying, I'm really, really pleased with this. I love the twisted rib on there. I can't even remember if that was in the pattern or whether I added that, sorry. But yeah, I'm really pleased with the fit of it and the fact that it is lightweight. I said last time in my last podcast that Rowan Valley Tweed is a nice lightweight. Although it's wool, it is nice and lightweight. So at this time of year, it works really well. Hugo is getting up to all sorts of antics. He's pulling his blanket over the wire of the microphone. Okay, right, so that's my rainbow sea glass jumper. I think that's going to get loads of wear because it just feels really comfortable. It's a good fit, and I think it's just going to be something that will just be so easy to wear a lot of the time. So let's get on to another thing that I'm really looking forward to having finished, which is my second Nola cardigan. Now, bear with me a moment. There's a lot going on with this, so I just need to try and pull it out carefully from the bag. without dropping any stitches. Okay, and then hold it back the right way. So I'm making a second Nola cardigan. I made the lovely yellow one that I showed a couple of episodes back, and now I'm making an evening sort of dressy one in the navy with the white flowers. And I have so far now knitted one full sleeve, and I'm 2 flowers into the second sleeve, so you can see that there are 3 flowers all together on it. And I've started the body because the body is very straightforward, a little bit of rib down the front, but apart from that it's just very straightforward, whereas the flowers need a little bit more care of following a chart. They are made, so the sleeves are knitted flat, and they are made using Intarsia. And let me just hold that up so you can get an idea of how that looks. And what you're doing with the Intarsia, as you may well know, is you're swapping one colour over to the next by twisting them round. And I have, let me come to the working side, so that one's finished, so it's just ends to sew in. But on here I can show you that I've got my bobbins. You see some of the bobbins have stayed in the bag, so maybe I can't really show you very well, but anyway, so you've got one bobbin for this side, then you'll have another bobbin for the white, and then a second navy bobbin on this side, which means that you're not carrying the yarn behind. The only time I do carry the yarn behind is when there's just 1 or 2 stitches here, because otherwise it can end up a bit messy if you've got a bobbin just for 1 or 2 stitches, because the stitches end up quite big and it can get a bit messy. So then I might carry the yarn over, strand it at the back just for a little tiny bit like that. And there definitely are cases where mixing Intarsia and furry can be the useful thing to do. So that's coming on really beautifully. So that's knitted in the Rowan Island Blend Anker Silk Haze, held together for the navy. And then the white flowers are using Alpaca Kid Classic and Summerlight 4-ply. 4-ply, yes. Held together because the Summerlight is the Kid Classic is a little on the creamy side, so the 4-ply cotton is adding just a little bit more whiteness into it, just making it a little bit sharper in colour, if you like. And I'm knitting the 3rd size on the shoulders and then going up to the 4th size for the body. So yeah, and it will be cropped. How cropped it will be, I don't know. I quite like to have quite a deep rib, because then I find it kind of sits better on the waist. So yeah, I'm finding the sleeves, if you can see, which is probably why I've got further with it, the sleeves are definitely more enjoyable at the moment. I think I'm getting quite stuck into those. So yeah, they're a lot of fun seeing them develop. So it's coming along beautifully, and I can't wait to wear it out. And Hugo is bringing me all sorts of things at my feet that he's digging out. His crate, his bed, if you like, is in my studio, because it's a cooler room in the summer for him to sleep in at night. And he's bringing everything out, and he's laid down a couple of blankets. And now it's a shame actually that I've not got my phone nearby, or I'd add a photo in. But if you can imagine, he's sitting on he's pulled his blankets, he's made himself a little bed by my feet, and is now sitting down on them. So there you go. He didn't want to go far. So that is my Nola cardigan. My next project to talk to you about is the Building Blocks blanket by Becca Holm. And this is a blanket that I'm knitting for a new grandchild that's on the way. I was talking about that on the last episode. So again, this is got lots of bobbins and needs to be removed slightly carefully from the bag. So here we go. Here it is. So the bobbles are a little bit pronounced at the moment because they kind of look more like round bobbles. And when I have finished blocking them, they will make the bobbles a bit flatter so that they look more like Lego bricks. The yarn that I'm using for this is Mrs. Moon, it's Pudding by Mrs. Moon, which is a DK yarn. But in this pattern, you hold it twice, hold it double if you like. And then I'll show you the back because it is knitted using Intarsia. And again, you can see that I've got those different bobbins and you're switching between the different colours by twisting the yarn. So you can see almost that little line where the twists are going on between the different colours. And then it is going to leave me a few ends, and I'm trying to decide how to best make the ends because I still want it to look fairly neat even at the back. I'm finding the bumps, or studs as apparently is the correct word to use it for the Lego bumps. They're quite labour intensive because obviously you're making these bobbles and each bobble is, I think it's 5 rows. But the rest is really enjoyable because it's just stocking stitch and you're just swapping around the different colours. And it's building really fast because it's a thick yarn. So yeah, I'm enjoying doing it. I'm enjoying the sort of changes that you're making and seeing it build up as we're going along. So to create the brick layout, I'm following a chart in the pattern. I've added another 2, that's that end. I've added a block of 2 on the end here just to make it a little bit wider. Kind of wanted it to be about wide enough to go across a cot. Although I'm not sure what they would choose to use it for, but that was kind of what I wanted to do. I'm about halfway up at the moment if I choose not to add any more into the length, but I might do. I might add a bit more into the length, we'll see. So that's a fun project, and actually I'm quite enjoying doing that in the evenings because it doesn't require too much thinking about, whereas the Intarsia on the Nola Cardigan, or indeed the furry project that I'm doing, definitely require more sort of daytime knitting, if you like, when I can concentrate a little bit better, when the light's a little bit better. And that's one of the advantages of having a number of projects. Right, on to my next project, and this is definitely a mindless one. Let me just get that. So, this is the Little Squares blanket, and it has got another row. So we're now on to 4 rows. And you probably remember it's made using the Advent that I got from the camel yarns. Just take you all the way across. There we are. I think I'm trying to remember how many. I added a couple of extra colours in from yarns I got from Blue Fern Yarns. And so I think I've got a total of maybe 27 or 28 different colours. And they're running in an order. They're running in the order of the Advent with the extra, some extra greens that I've popped in just where I felt that they looked like they worked best, if you like. So that is definitely my mindless knit, my easy knit. I took that up. I went and met my daughter that's come back from university for the Easter break, and I met her up at Paddington. And the Little Squares project, just taking one of the strips of squares and taking that in my little knitting bag is a brilliant project to take there. Because one time I got up there and the train's got a long way to come from Penzance. I'm trying to remember now. I think it's about a 4-hour journey, something like that. And inevitably, there are parts of the line that can flood, and there's all sorts of things. So trains can get delayed, and one time I did end up waiting 2.5 hours. So it was actually, in that case, it was at the last bit, so therefore I was already on the train going into London. So it's always good to have your knitting on standby, isn't it? My next project on my needles is my Conspiracy of Ravens jumper. And the last time that I showed that to you, I just knitted the rib. So since then, I have added some short row shaping, and I'll put a photo of that actually on the screen so you can see that in a bit more. Where are we? So there's the back. You can see a little bit of that. So, and now I'm quite a few rows down into the fair isle, and my ravens have got heads. So let me see if I can position that so that you can see. So on the pattern, the raven has a beak with a little point at the bottom, which I think the ravens do their beaks do point down a little bit at the bottom, but I felt it made them look a little bit too sinister for my liking, and I felt I might find it slightly less appealing wearing it if it was a bit sinister. So I have actually made a little adjustment there and lost that last little bit off the beak. So I think my ravens will probably end up looking a little bit more friendly. So, but it's coming on beautifully. It is knitted in yarn from Yarn Tings, and let me just get this round the right way, and then Yarn Tings, and then the fluff was from Loom, and the yellow that's from Yarn Tings, and that was from Skein Queen. And these are really useful actually for when you've got something, and actually I was planning that on the Nola jumper, that when there's a lot of stitches on your needles and there is a risk of them slipping off, these little bits, there are lots of different things, aren't there, that you can put on your needle to stop the stitches slipping off. But I have bought so many and just found they don't work, they slip off. But these are like little rubber rings. I bought these from Loom, which is where I got the green fluff from, and they were all things, and even the bag all came from when I was at the Unravel show at Yarn Show February. But these have been really useful. I really like these. So I think I got two pairs, but I think I'm going to look for more when I am next either shopping online with Loom or at a yarn show where they're at, because they're just so really useful. So, and there's my little lovely stitch marker that I got from Ailey, the thoughtful knitter, when we went along on the Wool and Walks tour last October. So that's all the projects I'm currently knitting on. Okay, so last summer I started a number of projects I did not finish, and they are in this box. Here we are. And I decided it's time to go through them. As you can see, they were actually fitting in the box a bit more neatly than this, but because I've already had a quick look through before talking to you, they're looking a bit more of a mess now. So anyway, they're in this box and they're taking up space. And what I really noticed when I started going through them was how much I love them. I had thought, well, let's see, it's time to either finish or frog these. But on the whole, I think, I just want to pick them back up and get started again. So let's have a little look at some of the things that I've got here. I'm going to pop the box down and just pick up the first pattern. So this pattern project, whatever, this one is Angelou by Martin Story, and anyone who's been watching me for quite a while will remember that I have done an Angelou before. It's a double knit pattern, and it's a fitted cropped cardie. But what surprised me when I started having a little look at these projects was how close I am to finishing this. And you think, for goodness sake, why have I put it down? But probably was just because it was getting colder and there didn't seem much point in continuing it. I do seem to be in a bit of a mess here with this. Seems to be a lot of ends going on, and a needle that's not in use getting stuck on there, which is not very helpful. I'm not even sure I need that anymore. Okay, so here we are. This is my Angelou, and and it's got a built-in band down here, and then you're picking up the stitches around there. So you can see you've got the pattern. So it's quite a nice meditative knit, not too complicated. It's a slip stitch. Those rows are slip stitch, so they're quite pretty straightforward, to be honest. And then you've got stocking stitch in between, and it's got a set-in sleeve. I knitted it last time in Mordell, which is also a double knit. I did a lovely yellow one, and I wear that loads. It's a really nice practical cardigan for throwing on over the top of the dress. So yeah, I had this lovely cotton. It's summer light double knit, Rowan's summer light double knit, and I thought this would be beautiful. I think this would go with so many different things, this colour. I really like this colour. So yeah, so I have, and I've almost finished it. So here we are. That's that there, and it has 2 sleeves. So all I've got to do is block it and seam it. Well, and I'm not somebody that is, I enjoy blocking and seaming, so I don't know. I think it is just because I hit the end of the summer, knew I wasn't going to wear it. There wouldn't be the demand to wear it, if you like, because it was getting colder, and that probably turned me towards the projects for the cooler weather. So that's definitely something I could be getting on with, isn't it? And then that would be really nice to have that as another one of my cardigans. It's so nice to have quite a selection of cardigans, because obviously different colours and styles, but actually a lot of my dress cardigans are all of a similar style, but it's just having those different colours to go with different things, and even to go with your different moods as well. Some of mine are quite bright, and some of them are slightly more subdued colour, perhaps, like this one. So it's nice to have that selection. So that definitely could get finished, couldn't it? I also remember that I made that with narrower shoulders, so it will be interesting to compare that with the previous Angelou that I made, and see how much difference there is in it, because it's a constant for me trying to find the right fit, and I definitely feel like I've got pretty good combination going on with the yoke sweaters. I do think I need to make sure that there's a good amount of short row shaping in the back. I need to build the back up on it so that it fits me nicely. If it doesn't, it's interesting how much difference that can make. But with the pieced bits, like some of the older Rowan projects, and it's interesting because that's almost a bit more like dressmaking, isn't it? Because you have got your pieces, so you've just got to work out, well, if I've got narrower shoulders, then I need to bring in, and if you were cutting fabric for sewing, you would come in a bit, wouldn't you? And of course that's exactly what you've got to do with that, and then think about the effect that's going to have on the sleeve and so forth. So yeah, there's still a little bit of tweaking in my mind going on with that. Anyway, enough rabbiting about that, and on to a top-down item, and this is the Anker's Summer Tea by Petite Knit, and it is knitted in. So I saw this yarn, sorry, excuse the rustling, I saw this yarn in Stitches and Cream and bought it on a complete whim because I love the colour, and it is, I think you say, cremque soul wool, and it's called Morning Salutation. And let me bring that up. You can see that. I don't know how well the colour will show on here, but it is a lovely, slightly almost burnt red. So I love, it's almost got a bit of an orange hue to it, and I really liked it. So this pattern is top down with raglan increases. It has these ribbed rings, and you're increasing in between the rings. I've made the size 6 for the yoke, and then I'm going to go up to the size 7 for the bust. The body and sleeves are just going to be knitted in stocking stitch. I think I have just reached the stocking stitch stage of it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rings I've got on here. And then we then go on to straightforward stocking stitch. And I'm thinking I've got this Irish road trip coming up. So there's going to be lots of traveling where I would like a nice simple stocking stitch, and finishing this could be a good thing. And because it is a double knit, it's not quite so much work. So I'm just going to pop it on, because actually this is something I hadn't done. And when I was knitting it, I wasn't entirely sure about the rib and how it sits. However, I think that what happens is the rib opens out, and then I think it takes on a much better look. I do love this colour. I really do. As I say, that's what happened. I saw it. I had no idea what I was going to make with this yarn when I saw it. And I remember saying, I'm trying to remember who served me in there. I think it might have been Nick. And I remember saying, I'll have 7 balls. No, I'll have 8. And then I think we ended up with just give me all the balls you've got. So I think I may have ended up with 8 or 9 balls in the end, just to make sure that I didn't run out. So yes, I think this is definitely something I am going to get on with and finish. So let's pop it off. I'm just looking at how so it would be a tubular cast on. You can see that's all lovely and stretchy, going over your neck, but then sits back in the rib really beautifully. So yeah, I can see looking at that as that is a tubular cast, and I did that. It's always a bit tricky, isn't it? You're picking up something that you've not done for a little while, and you're not exactly sure where you've got to. And on the pattern, I've got a marker showing where I am, and it looks to me, by looking at the work, that I've just gone over to the stocking stitch section. So pretty much I need to first of all make sure that where the marker is, and it's where, that all marries up, but also to do a stitch count. And I can see I've got some markers here, which I think mark the sleeves from the body. I think that's what they're there for. But I'm going to need to just go back, put that little bit of work in to check that that's all the case, because it would be devastating if I went further and then found that I'd made a mistake. So much easier to get that sorted out now. So that is the Anker's tea. Is that what it's called? I think it's what it's called. Anker summer tea. That is that one. The next project I have got is Pollinate by Florence Sperling. And this is a Rowan pattern, and it's from this book, which is number 75. So that's last summer's. And I did talk about wanting to knit this in a podcast I did last spring. I talked about a number of different things that I wanted to knit. Pretty sure that the Anker Summer Tea was not in that update, and that's probably because I came across the yarn later and wanted to find something to do it. Anyway, the Pollinate was, and the Pollinate is a really interesting pattern, and that's what drew me to it. So I'm always looking for different things knit, things that I've not knitted before. So this is knitted in, let's just get it out here. So it's only a little bit that I've done so far. And this is knitted in Summerlight 4-ply, Rowan Summerlight 4-ply, which is a cotton, and that's the navy. And then the green is Rowan's fine lace. And the green came from somewhere else, another project. Yeah, I remember it was a cardigan that was fine lace and kid silk haze, and I frobbed it. It's something that I think I did show you way back in an old podcast when I was going through some other sleeping whips, if you like, and that was one that I could do with those little stoppers on these needles. Actually, look, I'm just quite close to the stitches coming off. Anyway, so this is, let me see if I can get it up nice and close to you and show you. So this is knitted using the Estonian inlay in the round technique. And the green, which is yarn B, is not actually knitted. It's just brought to the front, laid across stocking stitch stitches, and then taken back to the back. And you've got charts to follow to do that. And Rowan have also made videos to show you how to do the technique. So it's not been, and then you've got some lacy inlets in between. So it's not been difficult to do. Requires concentration, I would say, especially as it's a new technique and you're following a chart. But it's not been difficult, and you can see this here. You start off with the line, and then as you come down, then the pattern has changed a little bit. And you see these lines of the lime green. Well, they don't actually strand behind. You've then got those lacy stages even in between, and it does not strand behind those. And obviously, if it did, it would look completely different. So you have a bobbin for each of these lines. So there you are. There's that bobbin, and again you're holding. Oh, actually, yeah, no. See, this is what happens when you haven't looked that carefully at it recently. I think it's 5 or 6 strands you're holding together. So you make up the bobbins just like I did with the baby blanket, the Lego blanket. You're making up, I make the bobbins up with the yarn doubled, or, in this case, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on. Yeah, it's 6, yeah. So I make up the strands using 6, make up the bobbins using the 6 strands. And then you keep them nice and short. So you hold the tail when you're making the bobbin to one side. And by doing that, it means the tail is held in nice and tight. I've made a video actually of how to do this some time ago. But it holds it nice and tight like that, and then it's easy to work with. Whereas if you've got a long bobbin, and I think there might be one here that started to unravel, and there's certainly a couple on the blanket that have unraveled. It's usually just in that last bit as it's coming to the end when it starts to unravel. But once they get longer, they get a little harder to manage, and they're more likely to tangle up. So you can see these ones, the short ones, are not tangling up. But when you get a longer one like that, yeah, and it starts to tangle up a little bit. So anyway, it's really interesting. And I might shorten the yoke pattern just from the look of it in the book. I think it might look better if it just sat up a little bit higher, didn't come too far down the bust. And that's, I'm shorter in the body. I'm short all over, but so that might work. I felt that might work better. So if I do that, I'm just going to omit a few rows out of the chart. Quite a few of the rows are just repeats, so that'd be quite easy to do, and just so it sits a little bit higher. And this is a pattern that what I was doing last summer. I've got a little seat down at the bottom, a shelter seat down at the bottom of my garden, and when I get half an hour or an hour, then I would take this down there, because as I say, it does require a bit of concentration, and just sit there and knit that. And I think I'm probably about halfway through the yoke, especially if I'm going to take out a couple of rows. And then when I get beyond that, it's just, as far as I can remember, I'm pretty certain it's just plain stocking stitch. It is on a 4-ply, so it's going to take quite a long time to build. But I think it's always quite nice having projects that all they are is simple stocking stitch, because I'm always looking to have something like that to turn to, like when I'm traveling or something like that. So yeah, I will. It will take some work, but I am going to plug on with this, and it'd be interesting to see the result. And I love the combination of the lime green with the navy. I always think that it really makes the lime green pop out when you put it with the navy. Okay, so next project, there are plenty of them, aren't there, is the Tolsta tea. I did a Tolsta tea in yellow 2 years ago, and it's a lovely pan. I'm sure you've all done one probably, or most of us have. So I had some yarn left over from the Nat Staton cardigan, and there's quite a lot of yarn left over, and I decided to this and do it with the stripes. And when I got this out of the bag, I thought, that's too small, that's not going to fit me. But I have actually tried it on, and it does fit me. It does bring back memories, because I started knitting this during my last couple of months in Cornwall as the weather was getting warmer down there, and I was spending quite a lot of time knitting this on the beach. I know, tough times, eh? So that's quite nice because it brings back memories. So yeah, this again, like the other projects that I've talked about, will be once the other top-down projects will be. This was just going to be a simple stocking stitch project now. I need to get it. It's on barber cord so that I could try it on. But now that I know it fits correctly, I could then get on and start finishing it. I'll just show you quickly. Most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with the Tolsta tee, but it is just a top-down short sleeve. I think she's done long sleeve ones as well sometimes, but it's supposed to be short sleeved. You can do it in double knit or 4-ply. This is in 4-ply. So yeah, it's a lot of work to it, just like there are on some of those other ones that I showed you. And it's got these raglan increases coming down here. And I have to say, these ones look a lot better than they did on my first Tolsta tee. So, yeah. I think I'll make this top quite short to wear with a skirt. I don't wear an awful lot of knitted tops in the summer, because if it's too warm to wear a jumper, then it still feels too warm to wear a short-sleeved knitted top usually, and I'm then going over to a blouse or a dress and a cardigan. Just tends to be what I'm inclined to wear, so don't get a lot of wear out of them. So I'm trying to be careful this year to not. I see these short sleeve knitted tops and think, oh, they look beautiful, but I'm just being careful not to knit too many because I don't wear them so often, and to knit more cardigans or other little summer projects, which I'll probably tell you more about over the next couple of months. I've got a number of other little things on my mind, but just small things, that don't feel hot when they're sitting on your lap. That's the kind of thing, or even don't feel too woolly and hot to knit with, so they're not sort of sticking to your hands if it's warm weather. I had planned to do bust shaping on that Tolsta tee because Rebecca from the Creative Beer had brought out a version with bust shaping, and I don't know, I can't see any sign of me doing that on there, and yet I would have thought, because I've just knitted about an inch down under the separating for the sleeves, I would have thought it would have kicked in before that. So I must go back again, like the Anker's tee. I need to go back and just double check exactly where I am and whether I want to do anything else or whether I'm just going to knit straight down. Okay, so next one out of the box is the Skylark by Martin Story. I'm not sure I'd technically call this a summer well, it definitely is something that you could wear in the summer, but I think you could also wear it in the winter or in between. So this is it's a Rowan pattern. It's from their first Mordell book. So Mordell is one of their yarns, and it's a Yorkshire yarn. And what have I got done on it? It's a lovely pattern. I really like this, and it's in this lovely shade of the Mordell red, and it's got this cabling around the rib, and then it's plain stocking stitch, and then it's got this twisted rib, coming up on the front band there as well. So it's a really nice looking carding, and I really like it. I know it's a really popular pattern. and I have knitted of it so far the back, that front, there's the other front, and half a sleeve. So I've got 1.5 sleeves left to do. And again, that seems like doesn't seem like too much to do, and I really do love this pattern. Definitely want to finish this. However, I am aware that I think when I last had a bringing out of my unfinished projects, that this was in it then, so it's still not got finished. So I need to try and get my act together on that one. So, and then finally, actually I'd forgotten that I was going to get this one out to show you, and I've noticed that the pattern book has got separated from the knitting here. It's a Rowan pattern. It's in pieces. It's a really old Rowan pattern, actually. And I saw it on quite often in Rowan. Well, Rowan always do in their magazines a story in the middle. And in recent times, they're reflecting back on other patterns from the past. And this was one that was featured in there, and so I found it, and I went and found the magazine online, probably from Etsy or somewhere like that, and bought it and started knitting this. So I can't remember the name of the pattern off the top of my head, and as I say, I can't lay my hands on the book at the moment. It's somehow got separated, so I'm going to put up here, I am going to find it, and I'm going to put up here what it's called. But I did want to show it to you because it is beautiful. But it's a lot of work. So here we go. This is it. It is ferrule in 4-ply, and I'm using Rowan Summerlight 4-ply. Would have been a different 4-ply back in the day when this pattern came out. And I found similar looking colours, and I just love it. I think it's really beautiful. But there is a lot of work to it. The pattern doesn't seem to be a set pattern repeat. It's one of those where you've got a whole chart for the whole of the back. This is the back that I'm knitting. So that makes it quite hard to follow. In fact, I have got one I'm using for the Conspiracy of Raven's pattern, and this was bought for me as a Christmas present. It's one of these. And of course it's slipped now. I've knocked it, haven't I? Here we go. Anyway, you have this line, and that shows you where you're going, and then a bit like, you know how the iPad covers do, it kind of rolls up like this, so you can put it at different angles, get it to do different things. I'm finding that really helpful to follow. But actually, I'm just thinking, I think even this, because it's such a big chart. Well, actually, it's not a big chart. It's a small chart. It was really small, and you end up having to then blow it up a bit to be able to see it. I don't know if it would fit on that. But yeah, so this is. And when I was talking about what I knitted in ferrule. Oh yes, the Judith cardigan, and I'd knitted that in the round, hadn't I? And I was saying how I was finding that really, actually I was making really good progress with that. Now that had small pattern repeats, and I think what I could probably do with this is break this down into smaller pattern repeats, because sections of it they're repeating, and then that might make it a little bit easier to follow. But what I was saying about the Judith was that I was wondering about changing these kind of patterns into knitting in the round. However, sticking is not as easy on cotton. It require a lot of extra reinforcing, and I'm also thinking I've already knitted that, and it is a cropped cardigan, so yeah. But this does require a lot of concentration as well. This is another thing that I might sit in the garden during the day and knit when I'm lucky enough to get the odd half an hour. And consequently, it will probably continue to be very slow to grow. But I do love it so much that it's definitely not going to get frogged. So that is that. So that is all my summer projects from last year and some. And I think as I say, I think the Anchors project I'm going to be taking to Ireland with me on the road trip, so that will get tackled there. I think I'm going to have look, I've got the project spread out on the floor here. I think I'm going to take the Pollinate, the one with the Estonian inlay going on. That will be something that I will continue to take out in the garden and work on that, although the Conspiracy Bravens, it's probably the priority on that one for the moment, because I'm halfway down the Fair Isle on that. But that will be another one. So that's where I'm going to start with that. That's my commitment from there. And the other thing I'm going to do is get on and block the Angelou cardigan, the one that is finished but just needs blocked and seamed, because really there is no reason on earth not to get on and get that finished. So yeah, and maybe I might look at getting a sleeve back on the needles of the Skylark, the red cardigan. It makes sense not to try and do too much in one go, because then we'll just be spelling ourselves up for things not happening. But if I could get those couple of projects going, if I can finish the Angelou and get the Anker's tea going, then that's already clearing a little bit of space in that box. And as I say, I'm going to resist the urge to cast on more tops for the summer and look at some smaller lightweight projects. So that is all my knitting. So coming up for me, we've got Easter, of course, coming up, and that's going to mean family time with the adult children and the grandchildren over Easter. Let's say my daughter's come home for the Easter break, and she's got exams to go back for after Easter, and then we will be heading for our road trip to Ireland. I don't know if I've told you about this already, so let me tell you anyway. I'm not sure I have. We're sailing to Belfast. We're going to meet up with my son and daughter-in-law who live over in Ireland and head up to the Giant's Causeway. And then we're going to be staying at Airbnbs on our way as we make this progress, so that we get time to enjoy all the different areas. So then we're going to be heading over to Donegal and down the west coast to places like Galway, Connemara, and the Dingle Peninsula. And then we've got going to be staying close to my son and daughter-in-law for a couple of nights, and then we're going to be heading back over to Dublin and back over the ferry that way. So it's we've done road trips, like we've done California, and we've done other road trips before, and the time just goes so quickly. There's just never enough time to do it justice. So it's going to be wonderful, but I know that there just won't be enough time to do everything that we want to do. So anyway, we will enjoy it. So it did get me wondering. I've got books and what have you looking at, and my son is giving me ideas of places, because obviously it's that they've lived in Ireland for 5 years, so they've visited lots of places that they're suggesting to us. But if you know Ireland and you know anywhere that you've really loved on the West Coast, maybe let me know in the comments. That might give me some other ideas, that things that we haven't looked into. And if you know anything yarn related in that area, let me know as well, and I'll see if look into it and see if that's a possibility that we can go along and look into those as well. So, okay, well, that is everything. So that just leaves me to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed delving with me through those old projects, and maybe that's inspired you to pull out some of your projects as well. Or maybe you're really disciplined and don't have anything like that. But yeah, I think a lot of us do, because knitting is about knitting what we enjoy, isn't it? And if we're not enjoying something at a time, it gets put down, doesn't it? Okay, so we've just got a little bit of footage left to show you of our recent trip to Suffolk and walks with Hugo. But until the next one, take care, happy knitting, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.